This episode of Let's Grow with William Padilla-Brown is brought to you by our sponsor, Grow Strong Industries. Limited space cramping your green thumb? Need a compact solution that delivers big results? Look no further. Gorilla Grow tents feature adjustable heights and a reflective lining that maximizes light distribution, ensuring your cultivation endeavors receive the full spectrum of illumination they need to thrive. Visit growstrongindustries.com today and explore their range of compact, high-quality tents. And don't forget to use our promo code Let's Grow for 10% off any of their products.
Get your H2O. Get your
All right,
Bev.
this is take 3 for Let's Grow with William Padilla-Brown. Let's go.
Cheers. Let's grow. All right, everybody. Welcome to Let's Grow with William Padilla-Brown. We're here with the mushroom merchants. I got Adam on my right. I got Donovan on my left. These are the guys. This is our first certified growers, mycosymbiotic certified growers. So the first people that are, qualified. We've checked all their standards. They've gone through our classes. We've seen how their grow goes. We've seen the outputs. We've checked the grading and everything. And now they're growing cordyceps for us, with us, to supply all of y'all. We're all here. We all love mushroom growing. I mean, shit, y'all are called the mushroom merchants.
Yes, sir.
So we're here to talk a little bit about mushroom cultivation, but before we get all into it, how about y'all tell our crowd a little bit more about who y'all are, how we all got interconnected?
Yeah, I'll lead us off. Yes, my name is Adam Roboski. I am a co-founder of Mushroom Merchants. I got into mushrooms through this guy right here, Donovan, is my cousin. And yeah, I didn't really know much about mushrooms at all up until 2-ish years ago. I was a poker player for a few years, big into crypto during the bull market. I had a couple businesses with my brother. And then Donovan came along one day and had the idea for starting a cultivation business. And
Bro, wait, hold on. How old are you, bro?
26.
When did you start playing poker?
18.
18. Is that when you were allowed to start playing poker? Or what?
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, like online poker on these like offshore sites. But yeah, that was like my big thing for many years, playing poker. I still play to this day, not as much as I used to, because I cultivate mushrooms full time now. But yeah, so I literally knew nothing about mushrooms. Then Donovan mentioned Fantastic Fungi, the documentary, like 2-3 years ago. I watched it and was just mind blown like many times throughout the documentary. So I was like, man, this is something I need to look further into. And then he mentioned the idea of starting a business. And Johnny, my brother, and I were looking for some ways to make money at the time outside of crypto, because we were like full-time crypto space at this point. But the bull market was over and markets were collapsing. So a lot of the money we had made, we had lost. And the businesses we had in the crypto space weren't nearly as lucrative as they once were. So we're like, man, we want to diversify somehow. We don't really have the skill set, though, to start a business in any other field. And then Donovan had the idea of starting a mushroom cultivation company. So we didn't know anything, but we just invested in him to kind of steer the ship for the first little while. And here we are, like 2 years later. We got a fully functional facility. I'm learning every day from him and just from getting in there, doing the work, getting my hands dirty. And have just fallen in love with the space. Like it's literally a never-ending rabbit hole of information you can get into when you learn about mushrooms, and it just connects you so much more to nature and your environment.
Preach.
It's a whole other side that in like typical Western life you're just so blind to, and it's just like a whole other world that's opened up. So I'm very grateful for the experience of working in this field now, and grateful to you for the guidance and mentorship you've given us. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun. So that was kind of my introduction to mushrooms. Now I'm full-time with it, just growing every day with Donovan and our family. His sister Talia is very involved with us. His mom helps us a lot.
Full family vibe.
Full family business, yeah.
So
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, that's pretty much it, yeah.
So where's the seed, my G? Where did this come from? Yeah, you seem to have seeded your family with the bug.
Well, nature seeded me. You know, whenever I was 15 years old, I had a passion, as a lot of 15-year-olds do, for smoking weed,
Hey,
for lack of a better term.
how about it?
And we lived in Central Florida, all around large cattle pastures. And if you know anything about the mushrooms of the southeast United States, you know what I'm talking about. I'm just going to leave it at that. So I messed around, found some things out, and really didn't think much of it, but I moved back up here to central Pennsylvania, and a family friend of mine, was running a hemp business, cultivating hemp in my town. So I messaged him and I was like, hey, I'd like to come learn from you. I'd like to come interact with you a little bit. He invited me out. I trimmed with him, just did some stuff with him for the day. A year later, he's like, yo, come on, basically work full time for me. So I did that for about a year. And in between this time, as I was building my passion for growing things and just interacting with my local ecology, my mom, I think it was the winter of 2019, got me a North Spore lion's mane grow kit. And I had, besides foraging for the special mushrooms in Florida, I really knew nothing about mushrooms. So I took that grow kit, cultivated it, and grew some little baby, ugly looking lion's mane. But I was like, I want to do this better. I want to do this the right way. Went on the internet, just kind of YouTubed, Reddit, just read things that I could find online, and ended up building my own little home grow mushroom farm. And at the same time, my mother was working for the Pennsylvania cannabis industry at a dispensary, and one of her customers is sitting to my right, and she was like, "Yo," she came home to me one night and was like, "Yo, you got to meet this guy. You'll love him. He's doing some really cool work in the area. You just got to meet him." A couple weeks went by. We ended up getting connected, and I can't remember I think I went to one of your classes for the first time in probably 2020 or early 2021.
Yeah, something around then.
And I was still kind of on the fence about everything. I wasn't sure. I was just finished with high school. I was going to community college because I wasn't really sure where I wanted to end up falling into. And Mycofest, it was the summer of 2021. Mycofest was coming up, and I was like, do I want to go? Do I not want to go? Luckily, I made the decision to go. And as soon as I got there and I just met the people that were around me, interacted with some of the minds that were there, I was like, this is it. This is what I got to be doing. It just really called to me. If fast forward to now, things have just kind of aligned almost perfectly, and we're cultivating cordyceps in a 2,400 square foot old refurbished barn that we basically ripped apart with our own hands. Took about a year, ripping the original flooring out, ripping the walls, changing the entire infrastructure of the building. Now we're cultivating out of it and doing some pretty large quantities of cordyceps at the current moment.
Yes. Yeah. One of the biggest operations as far as we know. So we've just been learning from Will, trying to, the real focus is on quality right now over quantity, but we do keep up with a good amount of quantity on a regular basis, but we're just getting better and better each day with it. And yeah, things definitely just fell into place perfectly. So
yeah. Well, I mean, to get into cultivation a little bit, since that's the topic of the day, I mean, we're all cultivating indoors for the most part right now. Mycosymbiotics does have some outdoor cultivation. We did outdoor cultivation in Dillsburg last year. We're doing a little bit of setting up for a bamboo shade hut outside. But all of us are cultivating indoors. I think it would be cool to just tell the audience a little bit about what that entails in the sense of mushroom cultivation. I think a lot of the general public believes that mushroom cultivation is all with compost or animal manure and dark rooms. And even today we had people from the bank come in and they were like, I was like, hey, yeah, our mushrooms are inside. We do all this other farming outside. They're like, oh yeah, because the mushrooms need to be dark and damp and stuff, right? And I was like, no, this is not like traditional mushroom cultivation. Mm-hmm. This is something different. So, yeah, what's it like? What's your farm look like?
I just want to touch on that point. It's so interesting to me interacting with people in Pennsylvania, just blowing their minds and just I feel like most people that I interact with, that's their exact sentiment. They're like, oh, so it needs to be dark and you're using compost or manure. And I'm like, I'm not even going to get into it. I don't have time to get into it with you. But as I said, I began with gourmet cultivation of lion's mane, and that's where I was at for about a year and a half. I cultivated things like oysters, lion's mane, a couple different strains of oysters, and I really, really enjoyed growing lion's mane, probably because it was the first thing that I ever got my hands on. ended up getting a culture from Mycosymbiotics and just grew a lot of lion's mane. But I was doing all hardwood substrates, was able to, with your help, supply that pretty much zero cost here in the state of Pennsylvania, which is amazing. That it's almost like a full closed loop system. You're not going to the store to buy pellets or buy like a third-party product. You're just using waste from another industry and using that to produce nutrient food. But what was I going to say? I've tried growing different types of mushrooms on pretty much, like, whenever I was working for the hemp business that I was paired with, I was doing some experiments with that just kind of like on my own. I didn't really document it or anything, which I'm kind of kicking myself for now.
Hey,
but
document everything.
Yeah, document everything. Write everything down, take picture, even just with your phone, you can do it all pretty much. But I was taking the hemp stalks, drying them down, letting them sun dry for like a day, grinding them up, and I would just throw that into a substrate mix. I'd try doing it with no wood, trying to just do all hemp, some mixed with some supplement. And
grow mushrooms off of it?
Yeah, and
Okay.
I actually had a lot of those different strains that I tried almost seemed to like the hemp more than it liked the hardwood, which was really, really interesting. And a lot of the farmers around here, and I'm sure all over the place, were just taking their excess from their crop and just burning it, or just doing something to destroy it. So I feel like that's something needing more research or needing more time put into it.
Yeah. Back in like probably 2014, 2015, I got sponsored by a hemp company in Canada. They sent me a bunch of hemp herd in the mail, and I did some experimentation on growing mushrooms with it, and they just did incredible. They performed incredible, great yields, great texture in the mushrooms, everything. So I think there's a lot of space there, especially because the hemp industry and the cannabis industry is still going through prohibition and all sorts of interesting regulation, where so many people are ending up with like just throwing their hemp fiber in the field at the end, or burning it, or going through some other weird regulatory disposal process. So I think that there's a lot of opportunity there. But yeah, like getting back to it, like what does your farm look like? What's an indoor grow look like these days?
So our farm at the current moment, we're just doing cordyceps, and I elected to do that for a couple of reasons. Main reason being that we're on the second story, and a lot of the infrastructure of this old building, I was kind of not wanting to put any more stress on it than it already had been. It had been vacant for 40 plus years. We were told 40 years.
The room we were in, specifically. Yeah.
So I didn't want to put any stress of adding in the humidification or adding any water and getting that seeping up into the floorboards and then having something heavy fall through it. That was kind of one of my big concerns. So with the cordyceps, the way our farm looks, it's a bunch of 10 by 10 grow tents. You could go smaller. I don't think they make the Gorilla Grow tents. They make the 10 by 20. That's about the biggest that I know of. But so we have 4 10 by 10s. One's an incubation tent. They all have wire rack shelving in them. And we have like a separate lab room that we have just one 2 by 4 flow hood in. And that's pretty much it. We have rolling carts, which I highly recommend if you're trying to build out a farm or get things. I was initially trying to find like little carts to push things around on, but the rolling 4 feet by 18 inches, I think.
Something like that.
Yeah, those are like a game changer because you can just throw all your stuff onto it, wheel it into a different room, wheel it across to a different tent, just move everything around. Oh, it's the best.
So, I also love those like I used to work in restaurants, and they have like these like trays that you put into a dishwasher, and it fits right into the dishwasher, and it can hold like a bunch of cups and stuff. I love those for like moving jars around.
Okay, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I used to work at Trogs, and that's what they would like, how they clean all the glasses and stuff in there. Yeah, our farm, it's like one open big room, 4 tents along the wall, plenty of space to like scale up production, which we do want to get to eventually, like add in 2-3 more tents. We could even get some pictures, like just to pop up maybe at some point, but it's
For sure.
It's like a big open room, like Donovan said, 4 tents. We try to keep all the shelves full. How many shelves would you say we have per tent? Like, is it
There's 8 per tent.
8 per tent, yeah.
And some of them we've modded to be like, they're 5-tier tents initially, but a lot of them we've modded to be like 6 or 7 tier. We don't want to over
Shelf, you
pack
mean?
them. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're getting 8 to 10 bags per shelf. So,
I mean, and again, why did you explained briefly, but why did you choose to go with a functional mushroom? Why did you choose to go with Cordyceps? Like just for the sake of the integrity of the building, or?
Yeah, I think that was like my main concern. I was just really paranoid about that and something going wrong with the building. Also, the amount of substrate. We're on the 2nd floor, so the amount of substrate that we were going to have to be moving up and down those stairs. And I was thinking if we were going to do gourmet, we'd have to develop like a pulley system or an elevator system to get, thousands of pounds of substrate up and down all the time.
Definitely operated on the 2nd floor before, and it's definitely an interesting dynamic for a mushroom farm.
It's a challenge, especially with the heat in the summer. That's one thing that we just recently implemented was we have a central air HVAC unit, but we have split duct units coming off of it directly into our tents. So we have found that to be extremely beneficial with managing temperatures. And I'd even recommend that if you're doing it in an area that's prone to heat with just basically any strain of mushroom that's
just piping the HVAC.
Piping HVAC. If you're going to grow in tents, or if you're going to build a big grow room, pipe HVAC, pipe AC directly into it.
yeah.
Because that's your temperature is going to be hard to fight, especially in the summers, unless you live somewhere really, really cold.
Yeah, it can ruin your yields, which you obviously want to avoid as much as possible.
That's why I like basements for growing indoors. I mean, we're in a basement right now. It's great. It does keep a more consistent temperature. This one though, we have windows on the side, so it's cold as ever in the wintertime out here, down here. But yeah, so I mean, I've grown over like at this point like 35 or so different species of mushrooms, and figuring out which mushrooms you want to grow. I mean, I really think like that's what will help a lot of people stand out in the industry moving forward. There's a lot of people doing a lot of the same thing. Another thing, we'll bring Justin in at some point, but cultivating outdoors at scale and introducing some of these Asian cultivation techniques I found to be very very beneficial in the sense of like less energy. Like indoor farms tend to be significantly energy intensive with all the electricity needed to control an environment. Whenever seasonally in most places in the world, there's at least some part of the year where you can grow mushrooms unless you're like in a desert. Yeah. Where indoor cultivation becomes more viable. What about inputs? Like, what kind of stuff are y'all using for your grow?
We basically copied the Mycosymbiotics substrate recipe, and we're just now getting harvests from that, and everything's looking really good. They look really strong and a lot, I don't want to say healthier, but there's more pigment in the mycelium and also in the fruiting bodies, and probably even like a stronger smell coming off of them.
What genetics are y'all rocking?
So we have done everything from I've tried a bunch of stuff from Appalachian Gold. I've tried a lot of stuff from terrestrial fungi. I wasn't really keeping the closest tabs on what was going to end up working best for us, but we really like the Mound 44, BX3, BX1, I think. Off the top of my head, I think that's...
Bro, to remember all that.
Yeah. I just picked up 8 different cultures, and like all the names are like 1 digit off, and it's just like making my head explode. But the BX3, BX1, I believe, is like the main...
We gotta have nicknames for these things.
Facts.
Yeah.
That's the one that I've found to yield really, really well. Produces the biggest, best looking cordyceps in my opinion. That is one that we're going to continue to run regardless of what we run next to it. That's going to be one that's going to constantly be in cycle.
Yeah, the Hades I believe that one's from Appalachian Gold.
That one's really
Fungi.
nice too.
We've had some really good results with that one as well.
I don't know the numbers and
Yeah,
letters
Mount
that
4
go
has
with that
definitely
one.
been our most consistent. And because initially we had a very basic substrate recipe. It was just nutritional yeast, tapioca starch, and
Multivitamin.
the multivitamin. So it's just very simple. But now we've upped it. There's so much more going on. Selenium, activated charcoal, kelp meal, malt extract. So we have way more like the Mycosymbiotic certified substrate recipe. And we haven't got analytics done since we've transitioned to the new recipe yet. But like Diamond was saying, it just seems like the mushrooms are much happier.
Hey, we got analytics done. And
Yeah.
It was
Yeah,
pretty
they were fire.
cranking. Like the only things we've
Yeah.
seen that were higher than that was cultivated on insects. So.
Wow.
And we're about to be certified naturally grown on top of that. So like that, the recipe that we're utilizing it qualifies for certified naturally grown, which is like a certification for regular small businesses and not multinational
Yeah.
like conglomerates.
Gotcha.
Really, I mean, think about it. Like the fact that we're getting these Chinese mushrooms and they're certified USDA organic, and all these mega corporations that go through the USDA certified organic process, like you can do it, but like for a regular business, it's pretty damn expensive and tedious and takes a lot of energy. But yeah, we're working on getting our certified naturally grown. We should be complete with that by the end of next week. So that'll be pretty
Nice.
cool to have that done for Cordyceps.
What are the qualifications for that? Like, what would disqualify you from being able to get that?
Using any pesticides, herbicides. They have to do water tests to make sure your water's clean. They have to make sure that your farm is far enough away from anybody that's using pesticides or herbicides.
Gotcha.
And then they want you to have any as many organic inputs as possible. Have transparency about your inputs for any substrates that you're making. And then as far as like putting the label on our products, all of the other ingredients that's not grown on our farm has to be either certified organic or certified naturally grown for us to be able to like label our products as certified naturally grown.
Gotcha. Okay.
So all of our mushrooms, if they're grown with the substrate that we have to submit to them our substrate recipe and all of our sourcing, and they have to approve all of it.
Okay.
So that's the same for our gourmets and our functional mushrooms. And then they have to approve our water source, and then we can say all of our mushrooms are certified naturally grown. And then from there on, just make sure we're using the right ingredients in our products. So I think that would be a huge step up in just like validating to the community that we really stand behind what we say what we believe in, to the extent that we're letting like third-party regulation or third-party entities come in and verify what we're doing. Maybe it's time for a break.
Break time.
With Guerrilla Grow Tents, even in a smaller footprint, your crops, herbs, or any cultivation project will experience optimal growth and yield. Built with premium materials, their tents are designed to last. Durable and tear-resistant, they provide the ideal environment for your cultivation success. Visit growindustries.com today and explore their range of compact, high-quality tents. Use promo code LET'SGROW for 10% off their products.
All right, guys, we're back, and now we got Justin. We brought him into the mix. Justin's our operations manager. He has some things to say as far as cultivation goes and as far as everything else goes, but you want to tell the world a little bit about who you are?
So yeah, I'm Justin. I am that I am. I am been into mushrooms since I was 3 years old. Been a forager real heavily, pretty much since 2014. I really got into it and cordyceps growing, even more so with the cordyceps in our area. But yeah, now I'm the production manager here at Mycosymbiotics, doing all the growing, product making, pretty much all the back end of the Mycosymbiotics business. That is me.
Right on. Well, yeah, we were getting back into the mix, and we were having some fun conversations offline. Maybe we'll get some snippets. But bringing it back into current events and current steps, there's been a lot going on in the industry, especially with the breeders. The breeders are definitely of their own class in the game. You know what I mean? Like the breeders in the cordyceps scene are some of the players that I've been seeing play since playtime started. You know what I mean? We have Ryan Gates, who literally was the only person that corresponded with me to any significant extent after we found the first cultures at Microsymbiotics Mushroom and Arts Festival #1 in 2015. And then we have Jeff over at Appalachian Gold, who have cracked the code on egg cultivation. So let's talk about it. What's up with it?
Cultivation. That has been. I recently saw them talking about how so many people think it's just CG.
Yeah, people think it's
Like,
AI.
It's so crazy that it's like there's no way that's possible. You've tried it before.
Yeah,
How'd that
because
go
like I
for
mean
you?
like anybody, it didn't go very well.
Dang.
It stank. It was rank. But like anybody that's like anybody that's an OG in this, anybody that's been growing cordyceps or been watching this since, we really started kicking it off, which, it was a pretty eclectic small community online before. But we shared like all the videos back in the day that we were finding on cultivating cordyceps, on anything about Cordyceps militaris. And there was like multiple videos from China of people growing cordyceps out of eggs. So it was like something that we always known has been able to be done. I don't know what inclined them to do it. But you would even see in the recipes from Thailand, people straight crack an egg into the substrate recipe. They'd be putting like baby formula in there, crack an egg in there, or throw a whole egg in there and blend it up in a blender with the shell and everything.
Wow.
And feed it to the cordyceps. I'm just like, dang, them motherfuckers can eat. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, it's been pretty crazy to see the breeders on the cutting edge of cultivation. And, I don't know if anybody else seen it, but has anybody seen the guy cultivate the cordyceps on the steak?
No,
Just
like
saw
what?
that come through.
Yo, they
On
co-
a
It's
cutting
like the
on a-
least vegan
on a-
recipe possible.
bro, on a raw steak, bro, on the meat.
Really?
Yeah.
It's just like
And cordyceps were
steak.
actually popping out of it.
I wanna
Straight
say
up.
like the most
What?
successful, but I don't know how far along that.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't prolific fruiting of it, but like the mycelium like ate the meat, bro. Like that was like mycelial fermented meat.
That's why. So is it very diverse in terms of what it can grow off of?
It can grow on insects, and like I think that people forget how nutritionally diverse insects are.
Yeah, like if you just put cordyceps like mycelium in a garden, will it fruit like just from in normal dirt and soil? Or does
I
it,
don't believe so.
Okay.
No.
But it'll fruit on a steak though.
It will fruit
an
on a
egg.
steak in a controlled
wild.
environment. Steak and eggs.
Mineral dense.
Steak
And
and
I think
eggs.
the protein levels have a lot to do with it because
Okay.
like a lot of higher protein substrates that we're seeing are producing higher compounds. So shows that
Gotcha.
they're really like digging that
Okay.
bug protein or apparently a whole steak.
Yeah. Nah, it's like it's this to me is like where will it go next in the sense of like am I gonna have like a cordyceps fermented breakfast at some point? Like am I gonna have some like
Oh.
cordyceps bacon and cordyceps eggs
You're cutting
in the morning
cordyceps chocolate.
and a little cup of cordyceps chocolate in the morning and just be like zoom, you know what I mean? Like geeked for the day. So yeah, getting back into the previous conversations though, I mean like I do believe that Cordyceps militaris is some sort of like I don't know, we talk about everything in nature has an ecological function, and then Cordyceps out here spitting out everything you need to make DNA and then making you horny. Talk about it. What does this mean?
Yeah. Well, so when we were cut for a minute there, Justin was mentioning how cordycepin is like one of the main medicinal compounds in cordyceps. but it's-
Functional compounds.
Functional compounds, but it
Hey.
doesn't. So you're saying it's not. If you just analyze the mycelium of cordyceps, you'll find like little to no cordycepin.
And
But-
adenosine, guanosine.
They'll be in there. Or they'll be
uranine,
absent
which
as
is
well.
something that isn't as high in the fruiting body.
Okay.
I'm just saying like the top 5 compounds that we're finding in these mycelium extracts.
Okay.
So like uranine's traded off for cordycepin, so we're not finding nearly as much uranine in fruiting bodies, but cordycepin now hits the top 5 range.
So once you get to the
Specifically in
fruiting
those.
body, and then because the idea, like when we were talking about how that's such a fascinating thing to me is how, like cordyceps, is known as like the Tibetan Himalayan Viagra, and then cordycepin starts to pop up in the mushroom as it's about to produce spores and like reproduce to a degree,
Seemingly, yeah.
and then that has an effect on human consumption as well. It's just kind of like that's just a crazy idea how like what is
Do we need need to spiral into
Repro-
how we're being farmed. 'Cause
I mean, it's like
very much like, so it's good for our reproduction, and we just keep consuming them because it's good for production, and
it's
now-
ecological procession. Yeah. I mean,
also DNA preservation and stuff like that potentials, which like not only does it want reproduction, but like healthy reproduction for like
Yo.
continual generations
It-
to survive.
something that just smacked me in the mind is like, all right, so we think about things for their ecological function. Like, one of the main goals in life is to reproduce so that your DNA is preserved and the story continues into the future and more information is held in the body into the future, complexifying the next stage. Cordyceps is one of the mushrooms that will senesce faster than any other mushroom. It will lose its ability to produce fruiting bodies.
Sometimes under a year even.
And it's to my understanding that this is due to genetic degradation. So isn't it crazy that this mushroom is just producing a dumb amount of compounds to keep its DNA healthy, whenever it's like
It itself isn't.
so
Great at
quickly
doing
space and time will ravish it if it doesn't shoot them spores out, and like it's like I don't know. There's a deeper conversation to be had here, and like what is actually going on. Like same conversation that I've been like wondering with lion's mane. It's of human hubris to think it's only for us, because there's other things. There's so many other functions in the environment.
Even its host species that it's coming in contact with. I mean, it wants that. Like I'm saying, I want to say parasitic, but it wants that species to survive. It's a symbiotic relation. It's taking it over, but that might be a symbiotic relationship. It's also helping those species in that area.
So
help
in
with their DNA, with the presence.
with cordyceps produces some compounds that are detrimental to an insect but beneficial to us. So I've never really thought about it in the sense of like lion's mane producing like these compounds that are trigger or beneficial to our neurological system, but how would those compounds affect the host tree that it's on? Like what do those compounds do in interaction with the tree? Like, is there some deeper conversation that we're not listening to?
Yeah.
In the sense of like, what is the chemical interaction between the fruiting body and the tree? Because those compounds, just like we said, are in the mycelium. What's it in the mycelium for if the mycelium's only in the tree?
Some bugs, definitely detrimental to them, but other bugs they're dependent on for spore transportation and whatnot.
Mhm.
So what's the benefit for the bug? Like it's eating it, but how much of those chemicals is that bug benefiting from in transition with that mushroom?
A lot of questions.
Yeah. Well, for lion's mane, what are the main trees that you'll find lion's mane on?
It's very diverse.
Is it? Like, is
So
it?
it's regionally specific. So we have a lot of beech trees in this area.
Okay.
Kind of like that, but deciduous hardwoods, anything like that.
I've seen it on
Yeah.
hackberry, oak, maple.
Well, yeah, I wonder if a mushroom or a tree is like filled with lion's mane mycelium, or it's like present to produce lion's mane. I wonder if like whatever fruits come from that tree are altered in any way, like in terms of the compounds inside of them.
I mean, who knows and who's to say at this point? Like, as above, so below, right? And we're seeing like horizontal gene transfer and organisms consuming other organisms, endosymbiosis, and all these kinds of things on like a small scale.
Yeah.
Like if it's as above, so below, like who's to say that the lion's mane living on the tree or the mushroom that's living on the tree or on the tree roots isn't in some way like it's reductionist science to say that they're separate species. It's reductionist science to say that the amanita and the pine tree that is associated with it is not the same thing. It's reductionist science is to break them down into two species. Then we start breaking down like all the gut organisms in our stomach and all the organisms on our skin. Like, them motherfuckers don't got no life without us. You know what I mean? Like, we are, and we don't got no life without them. So, like, you know what I mean? Are we going to just keep breaking everything down? But I think if we can start to look at them and understand, like, the relationships and the interactions and, seeing them as, like, functions of, or, like, organs or, like, something like that, like, I feel like we can get a better picture as to, like, what the heck's going on right now.
Yeah, like parts of a bigger whole.
What is actually going on?
Full image.
Yeah.
It's big.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many examples of that in nature. It's like the bee and flower situation where you'll never find flowers without bees or bees without flowers. It's like they're separate but from a higher perspective, they're just one.
Do you ever?
It's one organism, one system.
I don't know if maybe this is a wrong reference, but have you ever heard about Darwin's finch?
I'm not no.
All right,
Yeah.
so like Darwin, I mean, like one of the fathers of evolutionary biology, taxonomy, all this kind of stuff, was studying, I believe, in the Galapagos, where he found a flower that had a very deep, I don't know the technical term, like insert where the pistil and all the sexual parts are down and all the nectar's down in the little reservoir. I don't know what the technical terms is, so excuse me. But he was like, in order for this flower to look like this, there has to be a bird that the beak fits down into the bottom of it, or else this flower would not grow this way. And so they spent all this time looking. I think he even left and came back before they found their bird that had the beak that fit into the flower. And so like, I see in nature everything is like this. Like I oftentimes quote Terence McKenna saying DNA is protein syntax uttering itself into existence. I feel like it's like a complex thing to think that like DNA is like is a living language. But why does the oak leaf look like this pattern and the maple leaf looks like this? Why does the maple leaf have a little helicopter seed and the oak has a little acorn with a cap on it? All of those things are telling you a story about the existence of this thing through space and time, about what it interacted with, what kind of organisms have been around, like what the environment was like. And when we can remove our lenses of reductionist science and like see things with a more full picture, I feel like it's literally just trying to tell you like, shit, like I got this deep ass flower because there's a motherfucking bird that likes to stick its nose in here, or like, you know, my flower looks like this because there's a bug that like fucking comes in and sticks his little hands around and stuff, or like, you know, like all sorts of different scenarios like this. I feel like will become more clear to us when we can, you know, again see like a more full picture.
Yeah. So do you think like every flower, every tree has some kind of, I guess it makes sense that it is shaped that way, or it is that way for some reason that's beneficial to its whole
To the
ecosystem
environment.
it lives within.
And if you take this back, all right, so like when we look at fungi, right, in the soil, some fungi will farm bacteria or farm microorganisms, and some fungi will just produce, in that same fungi, you'll see it produce antibiotics for different organisms. So if you take that understanding back to when fungi and algae were the dominant organisms on land, and they were the ones that were developing ecosystems on land, any little microorganism that comes into the mix, and it's like, yo, hey, I'm about to come up in here and eat this motherfucking algae, like, and this fungi's like, no, you're not, because I depend on this algae to create this ecosystem that I'm making. Antibiotic on you. But like then this other organism comes in, it's like, yo, I see this fungi over here and this algae over here, and they're making debris, and if I eat this debris and poop it out, like I find my little spot over here, and then the fungi's like, oh shit, I like your poop, like I'll eat that, you belong here, you come in here and start being part of our system. All organisms evolve from microorganisms. So if all terrestrial organisms evolve from microorganisms, and the whole time fungi's like, nah, you don't belong, you belong. Like there's so many levels to that, and how environments evolved. And like for that reason, in my permaculture classes, I have a segment called Trees as Ecosystem Pillars. Because when you look at the tree as far as terrestrial ecosystems go, it's like for each tree, there's a class of organisms that evolved around the things it drops, or the fungi that comes up around it, or like the environment that it creates, and all that kind of stuff. So like to some extent, you know, there's some generalist organisms that are able to move through the mix of the different ecosystems, but then there's a lot of specialized organisms that literally like lives in this one tree, or lives in this an association like with this one environment. So yeah, I do believe that for like every tree, there's like some organisms associated with it, or for every flower, there's like some organisms associated with it. And I mean, this is how we even learn about megafauna that aren't here anymore. Like, we know for a fact no environment will produce a fruit with a seed that cannot be swallowed by the largest organism in the environment. So like, at no point in time will a plant produce a seed that cannot be swallowed by at least the biggest organism in the environment. But there's avocados in place where there's nothing that can swallow an avocado. We have the Osage oranges up here. And on a whole different note, we have the honey locust that has just giant spikes dangling off the side of it. So we can look at these plants and and speculate and even understand about organisms that are not here anymore. And I think that this is really important considering 99.9% of life that existed on our planet is extinct. So like we can look at what we have left to see what was,
Yeah.
once here.
So you're thinking in most cases, like an avocado tree, for example, it exists in environments where there's not a large organism that could eat the seed of an avocado because humans have just planted them where they're not like native to, or because at one point in time there were
Bigger animals.
bigger animals that used to exist that could eat them.
Have you heard about megafauna before?
I kind of assumed like, are you talking about like woolly mammoth type of stuff?
Woolly mammoth
or
were a type of megafauna, but there was a whole class of giant animals that existed
like
here.
post dinosaurs?
Post dinosaurs, and then most of them died off around the last ice age, so about 10,000 years ago.
Okay. What are other examples other than?
Giant sloths, dire wolves, short-faced bears, cave bears, saber-toothed tiger, or saber-toothed cats.
Okay.
I think there was like a giant ass armadillo type thing.
There's a Cape lion in Africa that was like
There was
twice
rhinos
the
here.
size of a normal lion.
There was straight
lion.
there was giant rhinos here. A whole bunch. There's like a whole bunch of. I mean, like we should do a little deep dive on megafauna
Yeah,
at some
seriously.
point. But yeah. So there was a lot of giant sloths in the Americas.
I've
throughout
never
the
heard
Americas.
of giant sloths.
Yeah,
Like-
bro.
Like a lot of those other ones I have heard of before at
Mhm.
one point in time, but never giant sloths.
There was cave sloths. There were sloths that used to dig into holes into the ground. Like in South America, you can even still see like fossilized caves that was just a burrow for a giant sloth. Like so, there's like, yeah. I mean, imagine like the. It reminds me of like the badgers from Avatar. Yeah, but
I learned from the Badgers.
Is that-
imagine.
Is that when they're traveling through that cave? And like, are you talking about
In the
Avatar,
dark?
the Last Airbender?
Yeah.
Avatar.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, yeah. I just watched that relatively recently, actually, like a few months ago. I binge watched that whole thing.
I love it.
Yeah, but that would be an interesting episode. Just do a deep dive at some
On
point on
Megafauna.
Megafauna. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Seriously.
Imagine pulling up on a cave. You're like a primitive human. You go walk in this cave and a motherfucking giant sloth comes out that bitch. Like, whoa. But like at the same time, I'm like, I go deep when I think about these kinds of things, and I love the show PBS Eons on YouTube. It goes and talks about deep space and deep time, all the different deep evolution, and I could only imagine like the type of underground fungi that a giant sloth is interacting with and eating. Imagine the truffles that thing found, bro. Imagine the truffles that evolved around that thing, cause like I have that whole theory, the truffled vole theory, about how truffles started to advance mammalian neurological systems after the KPG extinction event 65 million years ago. And of course truffles would diversify around animals. They literally need animals to poop out their spores. But this goes on to like the conversation that we were having before about the cordyceps like farming us or bringing us into some next stage of ecological procession. I think that fungi have been working on us this whole time. Like I feel like so many religions and ideologies makes it seem like the gods and the heavens is like something so far away and something so untangible. But I think on a multi-dimensional perspective, like everything is here right now, showing itself in different ways. But like truffles produce anandamide and induce adult neurogenesis and can increase brain neurological branching and advancement. Then it goes into Terence McKenna's stoned ape theory about like psilocybin advancing our brains, and now we're in this moment where we know that we can utilize lion's mane to like literally generate nerves, and we're at the point in time where we can like decide how we want to domesticate ourselves with all of the things that we have at hand. But I do feel to some extent the mushrooms are complexifying us to make us more like them in the sense of our nervous system. Like when we talk about as above so below, our nervous system looks more like a mushroom mycelium than any other part of us. If you look at like the basic wiring system of how we work, looks like mycelium. So and I don't know. I think that they're kind of coaxing us into like higher complexity, because then more interesting things happen.
Yeah, I see mushrooms as like, since I just relatively recently, past couple of years, started actually learning about, like, I literally knew nothing about mushrooms till we started the business.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of view them as like they give you certain buffs. Like I used to be a big gamer back in the day, and like you could take different potions, like give your character plus 20 like stamina or agility or some shit. It's like, have you taken Cordyceps as like I get plus 10 endurance for the day, plus 10 energy, like lion's mane, plus 10 intelligence. It's like it just enhances your organism. Like you're just giving yourself like bonus powers or increased abilities, basically. Is how I see it now.
100%.
If we think about mushroom farming people, the psychotherapy push right now, like how much of that is, you know, farming? That's a big movement.
Huge. Well, like mushrooms they're becoming way more mainstream than any other point in my life. Still plenty of people I talk to have no, like, they just know portobellos, baby bellas, like the gourmet mushrooms you eat, but the medicinal ones, I mean, I feel like every single day are becoming more just like known about and understood. And I think like Mudwater and companies like that are definitely helping, like people getting substitutes for coffee, and they're like, what are all these what are all these mushrooms that are in this thing, and what do these do? So people are figuring it out. And just as someone who recently started taking mushrooms on a regular basis, like the effects are real from what I can tell. Yeah.
And I think a lot of it has to do also with like efficacious doses. So like that's why we've been pushing domestic mushrooms and making sure that you know how much is in there, because a lot of people have been sold some Chinese powder at a low dose. And I'm not saying that the Chinese powder isn't efficacious, but I'm saying that you need a significant amount to feel something. You know what I mean? Like, and not just that you need a significant amount, but you also need to be able to consume it on a regular basis to start to develop a relationship with it and understand how it affects your body and allow your body to like really experience, you know, the compounds. So yeah, I mean, fuck. We've been talking for mad long.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I've never cultivated outdoors, so I really don't have much to speak on there, but take it away, Justin.
Yeah.
The only outdoor cultivation like background, I don't even have background in doing it personally, but I knew a couple of people who had outdoor cube farms in Florida.
Something I got to experience for my first time in Antigua.
Yeah. Oh, that's wild.
Yeah, so they don't really have written laws on psilocybe or psilocybe mushrooms at all yet.
Okay.
So, one, it's found native, and two, you can just grow it. So I saw some in just like some pans outdoors, just growing outdoors in these little pans. And that was like a secondary thing because the grower already did not golden oysters, but pink oysters.
Okay.
So I just had like crates of pink oyster bags, and then just like little trays sitting off to the side of all these.
Did they have like did they have like dispensaries or retail shops, or was it all just like you just have to grow your own? There's no law against growing your own, but you can like commercially sell it.
I mean, it's not in the laws, so
Yeah.
probably both. Yes.
Okay. But you didn't
There's
see
not
any.
many people doing it. It's not in the culture. I feel like most of all of that island is very much like even the pink oysters are just going to resorts or to yachts when they land.
Okay. Wow.
Very much tourist-driven type thing. Still an
Interesting.
educational thing that needs to develop in some of those areas of like because their culture's not really grown around mushroom consumption.
Yeah.
So that part needs to be built in some of those areas. But yeah, I got to experience that. I was like, dang, and around here they do it too. Just like wood patch growing of psilocybe mushrooms. But yeah, I got to play around with trench grows with reishi and maitake mushrooms, where you just dig the logs right into the ground with some decent irrigation and drainage and like sawdust on top, and you just cover it. And it's seasonal, like a lot of the outdoor mushroom growing is. But when it comes in, you're talking like easily one run where you just put 30 blocks in, you can get 300 pounds.
Damn.
Just because of the momentum that it can get through the season and everything that it's feeding off of, as opposed to just growing off of a block. So you can get a lot of mass, and sometimes, you know, because of the nutrients and how it's built up, you can get 2-3 flushes in a single season just because it's fruiting off regularly.
Yep.
Straight to like a bamboo hut type system with a shade cloth that we did. And it finished up like 30 foot by 16, a lot larger than I originally anticipated.
What are you guys gonna have in there? Are you gonna have logs?
So I did that for 4 years in at my dad's property in Dillsburg.
Okay.
And we did mostly blocks in there, a couple of shiitake log blocks
Gotcha.
as well, and just rotated grow because that was my only way to grow mushrooms for a little while. So I had to be a little bit more on the dependent side of just like making sure the blocks fruited on time. Yeah, but just doing like the peg growing, where now it's just like holes and substrate, and just like capping it with beeswax or whatever.
Okay.
That's like the longest way you can keep your mushrooms growing outdoors. But it's seasonal dependent, another one of those. So we did a lot of block grows. We grew anything seasonally. Even during the winter time, we were growing enokis outdoors and lion's manes. And in the summertime, we grew the Ichnoderma resinosum, the resinous polypore mushroom,
Cork of the woods.
which is crazy. Its seasonal its season is like after the first snap, so it likes like that 45, 37 degree temps. So it was like 101 degrees, I think, was the hottest day. It was just chilling out there, and that thing was just pumping. So
Pretty wild.
yeah,
Yeah.
kind of unique
Novel.
what you can do. We're in an area where we're allowed to we can just grow outside and not have to worry about watering a whole lot. Temperatures, humidity kind of range where if they need to, in like this temperate 7B zone. So it helps a little bit to have that at our hands. I can imagine like some places they're a little more desertified.
Yeah, way
You
harder
don't
to
have
pull
the
off.
option. Yeah, you're using a lot of water to have an outdoor operation like that. But we got that benefit. I recommend it if you do. It's just
Yeah.
Cordy's a little different. Cordy
Yeah.
growing outdoors. It'd be a little tricky.
They do it in some South Pacific countries, and I have no idea how.
That'd be
What do they grow
interesting.
on? Brown rice stuff? Just
In
outdoor
jars.
setup? Oh, okay. Put
Yeah, I got a
sharks on
picture
those.
in one of my presentations,
Like
like growing them in jars with like
sided.
with
thing.
like plastic wrap on top instead of lids.
Well, how warm does it get?
South Pacific is pretty damn warm.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that they don't have issues with
Bro.
calcareosporium and
That's why I started growing hot when I was
Geothermal.
younger.
Cooling / heating maybe.
yeah,
It's like similar.
yeah,
Yeah.
it could be.
After I knew they were growing in the hot countries, I was like, oh, they probably like it warm. They grow in the summer. Little did we know, the ground temperature.
Yo, talk about that.
It's
kind of
always the
chemical
same.
things.
Yeah, so. What was his name? Jaron Deshane? I think that was the guy up in New York that put temperature probes in the ground every time he was finding cordyceps like 3 summers ago maybe. It's like, oh, it's mostly like 62, 60, 63. So it was really cool to get that data
Yeah.
on the temperatures they like to grow in.
Yeah, it makes sense. If it's too warm, they just won't grow.
That won't do it.
Yeah.
Right on. So, pew pew ka-choo. Are we missing anything, Clinton?
I would talk on more of like modern research about how it can. I would just talk about microremediation and different applications of mushroom growing aside from just growing for eating or medicine, and then end on. It's good to see like this mycological revolution almost. It's like it's been a good starting, even though it's a trend, it's a good starting point for people to like return to the roots of actually growing something and shit like that, you know, and can kind of like conclude there.
Okay. Yeah. Tying in the substrate as chicken feed in some way, I think would be cool too. In terms of just like showing how all aspects of the process are benefiting the environment and humans, other organisms in some capacity.
What if you grew cordyceps off of a egg that was fed cordyceps substrate?
Yeah.
That'd be
Maybe I'll give a little boost. There's already some
Cordyception.
cordycepin in there.
Yeah, yeah. It's third, like 3rd generation egg, 4th generation egg. Just keep it going.
The egg stuff is wild.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever played around with that, like cracking an egg in your substrate and like just mixing?
I
it all
played
up
around
in
with
there?
that stuff early on when I was doing my first experiments back in like 2016, 2017.
Every one of my recipes have had way too many ingredients, as long as I
Gotcha.
can remember. Never done them simple, just like
Just
egg or milk type text.
Yeah.
nutrient it up. Back in North Carolina, one of my homies put it on like goat milk and rice, and it worked out pretty good.
Okay.
But yeah. So we've been playing around with this research project for Jefferson University. I'm actually supposed to go over there tomorrow on mycomaterials. Been playing around with that for a couple of years. There's a lot of people that are getting interested in mushrooms now for other things beyond just farming and fruiting mushrooms. There's so many reasons, other reasons to grow mycelium. Any new things y'all have seen that's caught your eye?
We got micro-remediation's huge. Heavy metals, not growing for eating, but actually just like absorbing heavy metals for like urban areas. Might be something that we might experiment even on this property here, as it was, originally built 1930s, a lot of lead type stuff in the soils, and we're trying to farm this out eventually. So be interesting if we can get some like lead heavy action going in, be able to see that revert. We got chickens on the property now, in urban farming with chickens, lead paint, everything's a tough thing to do. So definitely something that we're interested in seeing a little more studies on, and see if we can get our hands on some of that so we can push that a little bit ourselves. But heavy metal remediations, it's a huge thing that's starting to come out. So
yeah, heavy metals is the toughest one, since they can't be broken down. It's more of like an accumulation game. So I think that, with all of the minds that we have and quantum computers and the AI and everything like that, I think that some kids are probably going to figure out like tech for accumulating and like magnetic resonating like heavy metal particles out of biomass or something. Like something's going to come up soon. Anything else y'all seen?
Yeah, I saw a little bit ago. Do you guys know much about? I think it's called Milo. I might be wrong, but it's
the leather.
Like, yeah, like mycelium-based leather, and like I think that's such a cool like field that I see getting bigger in years to come. Is just like making clothing and different items, fashion items like handbags, whatever, out of sustainable materials like Milo, shirts, hoodies, wallets, and stuff like that. I don't know much about it in the YouTube video I watched, but seems like a very promising application for mycelium.
Yeah, I've definitely like on like a DIY like low key tip like grown some skin, some like reishi skin. I'm sure you have also. So I think a lot of people are playing with the reishi skins, but there's a lot of other mushrooms that'll produce a skin. Even the Ichnoderma produces a skin. So
is that different from just cultivating the mushroom itself?
yeah, you can get certain mushrooms or certain mycelium while you're growing it to produce like a skin layer on the outside, that's like growing off of the sawdust, but like protecting the inner mycelium.
it's like an anaerobic growth usually, where it like fluffs out a little bit further.
And
Yeah.
you can like peel it off the block.
What do you have to do differently to get that to start growing?
Just like agitate the block, get some more air on the outside of it, but keep it in like the like just peel the plastic away from the mycelium, and it'll usually just like form like a skin layer.
Okay.
That just reminded me of that project of the hypomyces, where for dye extraction. Where you just like took the hypomyces mushrooms,
Blended it up, that one?
yeah, and then just laid it back out, and the whole thing just like hypomycete the whole way across, because it's like there's not much red in that hypomyces lactifluous. So like
It's a lobster mushroom.
yeah, the lobster.
Okay.
So they had to like, you could extract it, but you're
That's
not
my
gonna
buddy
get
Sydney.
much out of it. But he really
They
ground that thing, put it back into a cake. It grew the whole way across the whole cake. It's like I didn't even know that would be. I mean, that's hypomyces for you, I guess. But
yeah, like I mean,
so
have
that's
y'all?
just like dye extractions that are huge. I mean, we saw the price on those indigo milkies, or no, the blue chanterelles.
The polyzealous multiplex.
Not for eating. Like they're not great. They're okay, but they're not great. The price was all for that blue dye. And I mean, it was pretty.
Yeah, it'll even just dye your whatever basket you have blue.
Cooking it, the butter just like blued out. Pretty.
But yeah, the with the lobster mushroom, if you get a lobster mushroom and you cut it in half, it's all white in the middle. So my buddy Sydney, they blended it up and put it out into a tray, and then just let the hypomyces just rip across the whole thing, and they got way more of that red pigment out of it that way.
Okay.
So yeah, that I
There's
mean,
money in those mushroom pigments.
bro, I think at this point, like if you can just if that's how this works, and this summer when we go pick some lobster mushrooms, I say we pick all of the other russulas, all the lactifluous and russulas that are around it. Also, because like a significant amount of them are edible. The lactifluous is more edible so than the russulas. There may be some russulas that may be a little bit off or give you gastrointestinal distress. But I think if we keep them all isolated and then just blend up the lobster mushroom with it and then just spread them out, then you can end up with way more lobster mushroom than you sought after. Like if you we got to figure out the ratio. Like 1 lobster mushroom per every 3 uninoculated or every 5 uninoculated lactifluous, and then you get like a freaking tray of lobster umami cake. Oh, and then sashimi that hoe.
Them in lobster molds.
Bro, a little SOP, that's a patent, bitch. That's IP. Yo, lock that bitch up. That's not on the podcast. Bro, that's not on the podcast. Like, hold the fuck up, bro. Like, what are we talking about?
That's something. So you
So
put it in
like
a mold, it'll actually form to.
We just put the mushroom mash in the mold with you blend it up, you throw in the lobster mushroom, blend it all up together, and just stick that bitch in the mold.
The outside would be nice and red. The
And it'll like
outside would be
fuse.
white.
I'm dead.
I'm thinking of like the pan that Golden Girls had hanging up that was just like the whole ass lobster.
Bro, and then freeze it and then sell it across the United States as frozen lobster mushroom, like for vegans.
$32.99 a
Yeah.
pound.
For like a fucking.
Yeah.
Do you know how they
Still
sell
cheaper than
those?
some lobsters.
You know how they sell those like fake turkeys for vegans for Thanksgiving? Just like
Shape.
Yeah.
yeah,
lobsters.
like the fake lobster for like.
Are they called
vegans.
lobster mushrooms because of the color and
They
like,
smell
their
fishy
texture.
and it yeah.
It's very
Gotcha.
much like a gooey, fleshy red.
Okay, but
white.
it's not.
And it looks like a
teeth.
lobster claw.
Oh, does it? Okay.
Everything about it, man. It's
Gotcha.
Yo, what's his name? Rogan got Jamie, bro. We gotta get Jamie over here to be Jamie.
Yeah. Just pull something up.
But yeah, lobster mushrooms looks like kapow. It looks like that.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I think I've seen these before.
and
They're rare here in
it's
Pennsylvania.
It's a hypomyces, so it's a mushroom that gets myceliated by a secondary mushroom. The actual mushroom typically isn't edible, and then that hypomyces grows over it and like hardens it, grows over its gills, so it stops it from producing,
Okay.
and just like hardens the whole thing. Because regular mushrooms are just like squishy, regular gilled, everyday
Yeah.
looking mushrooms. Slowly grows
It's
up.
not necessarily that those aren't edible. It's just that they suck.
Non-palatable.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple.
Like don't
reasons
taste
that-
good and not that medicinally beneficial.
Yeah, you would never want it.
Yeah.
You would never want it otherwise.
Yeah.
Unless we were like surviving.
Yeah, this needs something. That's yeah. Like if it, ideally it tastes good. If it doesn't, then hopefully there's some medicinal benefit to it. And if neither, then it's like, what's the point?
Most of those lactarius mushrooms they grow on have a super bitter milk. I don't know. I don't know if that cooks out or not, but
Like it produces a milk if you like squeeze it.
They produce a natural latex
bleed a latexy milk.
Okay.
like lettuce.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Anything else as far as cutting edge myco innovations?
Nah,
Heard about
I
it.
mean I think
See
all of
about
this
that
is like
electricity thing going on.
oh with the algae.
Yeah.
Yeah. I seen like somebody use a button mushroom as a matrix to grow algae on top of it, and then utilize the chemical reaction of the photosynthesis to like generate an electrical charge on like a graphene 3D printed graphene matrix that they put on top of the button mushroom
Jeez.
too. It would take a dumb amount of those to like produce significant amount of electricity, but just the idea of it, like imagine just like
That's a project.
a mycelial structure that you make that's like the wetness of the mushroom, like the nutrient on the mushroom was what feeds the algae. So like imagine making like a living mycelium panel, like freaking like I don't know, like LED lichen matrix, or I mean like a 3D printed lichen matrix or something. I mean all of this I feel
Algae
like
wall, but a mycelium wall.
mhm,
It's just like producing for that room.
synthetic lichen wall. I think all of this is leading into just like, I don't know, a revolution. Like there's like a total mushroom revolution going on right now. And like I feel like a lot of people are like jaded on magic, or a lot of people are jaded on like the moment and think that I don't know what people think, but like I believe this moment of mushrooms is the same thing when people in the Middle East and Africa figured out agriculture. Like when they figured out agriculture, for the rest of human history we've been impacted by this and we've never lost that knowledge. Like that's knowledge that's been like solidified as like part of human culture. It's just what we do. We are agrarians. Like, you know what I mean? Like we are the agrarian species. Like, but like I think that the way we're bringing mushrooms into humanity right now on a big scale will impact humanity forever, and it'll be something that's just like people grow plants, people grow mushrooms, like it's just like regular, you know? Yeah. And I think that'll be really powerful into the future whenever it's like commonplace to be able to have these communications, because then that'll lead into like way more incredible discoveries when it's not like people since the 70s just figured out what the word mycelium is. So like that's how long that the idea of just what mycelium is has even been in our culture. Like when the kids knows mycelium and knows clamp connections and knows freaking the spits and corpor and how nuclei get shot through. Like when the kids understand that and fully embody that, they'll be able to see a way bigger picture of what the heck they're actually doing than we've been able to like crawl into.
Mm-hmm. I had a third grader that toured our place recently ask us if we were growing bleeding tooth fungus.
Yeah, most people don't even know what's a bleeding tooth fungus.
I don't know it. I don't know
And I was like, well, we haven't discovered the purpose for growing it yet, but if we do find one, we will definitely be working on growing it. And he was like, sweet, let me know.
Is it like an edible mushroom? Or what is
It's not particularly edible, but like it like juices out a bunch of like red exudates out of the mushroom.
Like this white tooth surface, but it's a cap as well.
Is it the bleeding one that smells like fish really bad, or is that the okay?
So
I wouldn't want to.
Does that red color leave like a stain? Like is it like a dye?
Yes.
A little bit. So,
Maybe there's
like,
like a use for it.
It's not like no saffron dyeing.
Bro, Clint, for this part of the podcast, you gotta find. There's this video of this like wook kid in the woods that has like a bleeding tooth mushroom, and he like bites it, and a fucking spider like crawls up his face, dude. Yo, it's so fucking hilarious,
you all
bro.
think he's gonna like get sick or something from
Yeah.
eating the mushroom, but it's the spider. Yeah.
There's a spider
I've
just
seen
in
that
there
before.
that popped out.
Yeah, dude, it just like crawls off the mushroom and just like crawls up his face.
It's like
that-
some jump horror.
That's
type
like a
thing.
nightmare
Oh
situation.
god, he's just like crunching on this mushroom that you obviously shouldn't be eating. So like the video is already just like cringe. Yeah, like raw eating a bleeding tooth mushroom. It's just like, bro, wait, no, and then
That's got to be the first video that pops up if you just search like eating
Bruh.
bleeding tooth mushroom. Yeah, I want to see that.
And now a word from our sponsors.
Did you guys record the?
Ad read.
Yeah.
No.
Not yet.
Okay.
Give me, Will, can you give me like an alright, it was great having you guys for this first episode of Let's Grow with yours truly, William P. Brown. We're gonna thank you guys for coming on, but something like that, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
A nice outro.
Yeah.
Bro, like it's like I'm like typing in kid eats bleeding tooth mushroom. Like anybody on the internet knew that that was a
Yeah.
bleeding tooth mushroom, bro. Like
Oh, so yeah, they're not gonna. Even...
oh, here we go. Here's the kid. I found it.
This is
I think I've seen this before.
Devil's tooth. Yeah.
Yo, why is the Wi-Fi booty right now?
I've seen it on the
Okay.
I had my life good.
On this mushroom right here.
He's like already licking his lips about it.
I'm really about to eat this shit. Don't mind me though. Heard it was inedible.
This motherfucker's a whoop, bro.
What does a wook mean?
And I don't know what inedible means.
He's spun. Like he's done a little bit too much psychedelics.
Gotcha.
Looks like Amanita.
That does not leave
A strawberry
something
syrup.
to eat at all.
Did you say Amanita strawberry syrup?
Yeah. Look at all that spice you brought with it. Ugh.
That shit tastes like fish, or it smells like fish, bro.
It's so uncomfortable. Probably you know that shit's kind of bitter. I think I.
And it's hard.
Dude, fuck that. Fuck
Oh
that.
my
It
god.
went right for his nostril.
Holy shit.
No! Alright, guys. Thank you for joining in. Let's Grow with William Padilla-Brown. We've had Adam and Don, and Justin's gonna be around, you know. But thanks for joining in. It's been super real. We talked a lot about mushrooms. We talked a lot about fungi. We're gonna be doing more business. Y'all can catch them all on YouTube. Apex Grower, Mushroom Merchants, mycosymbiotics.com. You know the vibes. You know the energy. Let's grow.
Let's grow.
On the beam.
Roll it up, let's get to it, having fun. Are you drinking on this energy? We moving, qigong, pass the bomb, what's percolating? Cross your legs, take a breath, now we meditating. Burn it down to the ashes, that's that magic. Rise like Phoenix, double helix, that's just twisting me in. Taking trips out to Venice, vibe with Europeans. Gladiator Jeep, like we in the Coliseum. Can you show me paradise? Can you roll it for me, make it lucky for me?